Welcome, friend, to another evening together. Tonight, the tales carried through this story will be your gentle companions, easing the rush of thought into the quiet rhythms of patience. The journey begins, as it often does in Zen, with something deceptively simple, a bridge of stone, weathered by centuries, standing across a slow and ancient river. This bridge, dear listener, is not merely a structure of rock and mortar. It is a patient teacher in itself. Imagine the way moss softens its edges, how rains fall upon it year after year, and still it holds. The villagers cross it each morning without hurry, carts creak along its spine, children linger at its edges to drop small twigs into the river below. For them it is ordinary. But for the wandering monk who first discovered it, the bridge was an embodiment of timeless patience. Close your eyes if you wish, and picture this bridge beneath moonlight. The stones are cool, the surface worn smooth by countless footsteps, and beneath, the water whispers its endless lesson: all things move. Yet the bridge waits. Doesn't it feel soothing to think of something that has endured quietly, through storms and bright summers alike? Like patience itself, the bridge does not rush, it simply holds its place. In Buddhism, patience is not a passive waiting, but an active endurance, a quality known as ksanti in Sanskrit, though here we will call it simply for what it is. The willingness to stay present, without agitation, patience with the moment, with ourselves, with others. When anger rises, when plans fall apart, when nights stretch long with sleepless thought, patience becomes the gentle bridge we may cross to reach calm. There is a story told of a monk who would sit by this very bridge, letting the world flow around him. Villagers found it odd at first. Why sit by stones and water all day? Yet, in his stillness, they noticed something. The birds settled near him. The fish gathered in the river shallows. Even children grew quiet when they passed. In his patience, he created an atmosphere where life softened. Friend, can you sense how patience changes the texture of a space? Perhaps in your own life, you have seen how a hurried conversation can shift when one person pauses, breathes, and listens. The monk was like the bridge anchored, unmoved by haste, and so everything around him naturally slowed to his rhythm. Zen often points us to what is overlooked. A master might ask, when the bridge holds, who is crossing? Or if the river hurries, why should you? These questions are not meant for answers, but for softening. They invite us to lean back into life, rather than straining forward. The stone bridge also reminds us of patience with time itself. Each stone was placed by hand, years ago. Each weathering mark took decades. Just as one cannot rush moss to grow, we cannot force our own growth. Perhaps, dear one, you have felt impatience with yourself, wanting to be calmer, kinder, wiser, sooner, but the bridge whispers. Even slow steps arrive somewhere. Imagine walking across this bridge tonight. You hear your own footsteps echoing against stone, and each step is a beat of calm. The river below glimmers faintly, carrying with it the sky's reflection. You might recall how in your own days you hurry from one side of things to another, but here there is no rush. The bridge is not measuring your pace. Breathing gently, you realize patience is not something you need to earn. It is already here, like the bridge waiting all along. When you stop struggling, you step onto it naturally. A lesser-known practice in Zen monasteries involves bridge watching. Novices are sometimes told to sit at the end of a bridge for hours, simply observing those who cross, and the river below, No commentary, no judgment, just sitting. It sounds uneventful, but soon they discover the quiet transformations, the way impatience rises, then fades, how thoughts drift like clouds, how silence itself becomes alive. Friend, what if your own restless thoughts are just passers-by on a bridge? Would you need to stop them, or could you allow them to cross in their own time? And so, the story of the stone bridge opens our long night's journey. It shows us that patience is not about waiting for tomorrow. It is about standing here, steady as stone, while the river flows. It is about trusting that even the restless mind will eventually tire and grow quiet, just as the river eventually empties into the sea. As you rest now, imagine yourself leaning against the bridge's railing, lantern light flickering beside you, the night air cool and generous. The world has slowed, and in this slowing you feel that nothing urgent needs doing. The bridge will wait. You too can wait. Close your eyes, dear listener, and let the bridge of patience hold you, just as it has held centuries of travelers. The river beneath the stone bridge whispers its story in a language older than memory. It slides over smooth rocks, coils in eddies, and hums like a lullaby. On its bank once sat a monk, his robes patched with age, his eyes resting on the horizon. He had been told by his teacher to wait by this river, not for a person, not for an event, but simply to wait. At first, he did not understand. Waiting seemed pointless. Days passed, and he grew restless. What am I waiting for? He wondered. But as weeks turned into months, something inside him began to soften. He noticed how the river never demanded his attention, yet it taught him more than 1,000 sermons. The river showed him the patience of flowing, never rushing, yet always arriving. Friend, can you hear the faint music of your own inner river? It flows whether you chase it or not. Often in life we try to push time, hurry growth, or demand outcomes. But the river, with its gentle constancy, reminds us that even stillness moves. The monk learned to rest his thoughts like stones on the riverbed. When a breeze rippled the surface, he watched how quickly the water returned to calm. So too, he thought, does the heart return to peace, if left untroubled. The lesson was simple but profound. Patience was not about holding tight, it was about letting things be. Zen teachers sometimes use the metaphor of the river to explain life's flow. One master once asked, if you drop a stick in the current, does it resist or does it journey with the water? The question lingers, does not it, dear one? In moments of anxiety, we often cling like that stick, struggling against the inevitable current. Yet, what if letting go was the truer patience? There is also a lesser-known Zen tale of a disciple who was told to scoop river water into a jar and guard it until it became still. At first, he grew frustrated. The water remained cloudy, full of silt, but after a night's rest, he returned to find the water clear and calm. The silt had settled without his interference. The master smiled and said, "The mind is the same. Be patient, and its storms will settle." Dear listener, can you think of moments in your life when you tried too hard to clear the water, only to stir it further? Perhaps, if you had left it alone, clarity would have come sooner. The river teaches us this humility, patience with our own turbulence. As night deepens, picture yourself sitting on the riverbank beside the monk. Fireflies glow like tiny lanterns. The water sings softly, carrying the scent of wet earth. You feel the cool grass beneath your hands, grounding you in the present moment. Time slows. Perhaps it even disappears. In Buddhism, patience is often described as one of the perfections, alongside generosity, wisdom, and compassion. Yet, unlike grand acts of kindness or deep insights, patience is quiet, almost invisible. It does not shout, it simply endures, like the river flowing long after the monk has left. This quietness is why many overlook it, yet it is patience that allows all other virtues to bloom. The river also teaches patience with change. In spring, it swells with snowmelt, rushing wild and loud. In summer, it warms and drifts lazily. In autumn, leaves ride its surface, and in winter it sleeps beneath ice. So too does life move through seasons. To demand summer in winter is to suffer. To honor each season as it comes is to live in patience. Friend, I wonder what season of life are you in now? Perhaps a time of waiting. Perhaps a time of flowing. Perhaps a season of stillness. Can you sit by the river of your days and let it be what it is, without wishing it away? As the monk remained by the river, villagers sometimes came to him with their worries. A mother lamented her son's impatience. A farmer despaired at the slow growth of his crops. Each time, the monk would only gesture to the river. Look, he would say, at first they saw nothing but water, but in time they saw themselves reflected in its patience. And you, dear one, listening now, perhaps you too are reflected in this river. It does not rush you. It carries you gently and without demand toward whatever tomorrow may bring. There is no need to struggle across its current tonight. Simply listen, rest, and let the water carry you toward calm. The stone bridge above still stands, but it is the river beneath that reminds us, even waiting is movement, even patience is alive. Beyond the bridge and river lived a lantern keeper, a quiet man whose life revolved around tending the village lights. Each evening, as the sun dissolved into dusk, he would climb the winding steps to the small shrines, gently trimming the wicks, refilling oil, and shielding the flames from the night wind. His task seemed simple, almost invisible, yet it carried a deep wisdom of patience. Friend, imagine him moving slowly, one lantern at a time. He never rushed, for he knew that haste would only cause the flames to falter. Instead, each light received the same careful touch, each glass casing polished with the same quiet devotion. The villagers often overlooked his work, noticing the lamps only when they burned too dim or failed. But in truth, his patience lit their way home each night. In Buddhism, this lantern keeper mirrors the practice of right effort. It is not about doing everything quickly or dramatically, but about tending steadily, consistently, like adding oil to the flame each day. Patience is the ground of effort. Without it, the light flickers out. There is a little-known Zen anecdote of a novice who once grew frustrated in his monastery. His tasks seemed endless, sweeping the courtyard, fetching water, scrubbing pots. "When will enlightenment come?" he asked. The abbot simply pointed to the lantern. "When the oil is tended." At first, the novice did not understand, but over months of careful work, he began to see. Enlightenment was not sudden fire, it was the slow flame kept alive through patience. Friend, can you feel how this applies to your own life? Many of us want instant clarity, sudden peace, or overnight change. Yet like the lantern, true light is kept by steady care. Your calmness tonight may not blaze like lightning, but through patient tending, through gentle breathing, through listening, through resting, it glows more steadily than any hurried spark. The Lantern Keeper's story reminds us of patience in repetition. Night after night he climbed those steps, rain or snow, wind or heat. There was nothing glamorous in it, but each evening, when villagers returned from their labor, they found their path illuminated. Isn't it often so, dear listener, that the unnoticed patient work of others carries us more than we realize? Zen masters sometimes speak of patience as holding the lamp in the dark, not rushing to banish the night, but quietly tending the small light that guides step by step. This, too, is part of our practice for sleep, allowing the soft light of patience to guide our thoughts into rest. Instead of forcing silence upon them, picture, if you will, walking through that village at dusk. Lanterns glow amber against the gathering night. The keeper passes you silently, his hands stained faintly with oil, his eyes calm. You follow the lights back toward the stone bridge, and it feels as if the entire village breathes slower because of one man's patient tending. There is another teaching here, patience with recognition. The Lantern Keeper was rarely thanked, yet he did not grow bitter. He understood that patience is not measured by applause, but by the quiet joy of service. Friend, how often in your own life have you done something unnoticed? Can you see the Lantern Keeper in yourself steady, giving light without demand for reward? The sound of crickets rises in the background of this memory, their rhythm blending with the soft flicker of lamps. The bridge waits, the river flows, and the lanterns glow, all held together by patience. And perhaps this night, you too are a Lantern Keeper of sorts, tending the flame of your own peace, drop by drop, breath by breath, until it carries you gently into sleep. Beyond the circle of lanterns stood a bamboo grove, its tall stalks swaying gently with the night wind. The sound they made was not sharp like trees crashing, but a soft, hollow song, clicks and whispers, bending yet never breaking. Travelers who paused near the grove often remarked how the bamboo seemed to bow endlessly, teaching patience not with words, but with the resilience of its movement. Friend, imagine standing there beneath the moon, listening. The bamboo does not resist the wind. It bends. And when the storm passes, it returns upright, stronger for its flexibility. This is the patience of nature, reminding us that strength is not rigid force, but quiet endurance. In Buddhism, impermanence is one of the three marks of existence. Nothing remains fixed. Everything changes, shifts, and dissolves. The bamboo shadows illustrate this truth beautifully. They dance on the ground, never the same shape twice. A Zen teacher once told his students to observe bamboo shadows as a meditation. See how they move, he said. Your thoughts are the same. Isn't it true, dear listener, that our minds also sway with invisible winds? A lesser-known Zen story speaks of a monk who tended a bamboo grove for 40 years. Villagers laughed, thinking it a waste of time. But when asked, the monk said, "Bamboo teaches me to bow. Bowing teaches me patience. Patience teaches me to see." His life became like the grove itself, tall, supple, and deeply rooted in the unseen. Perhaps you too have felt moments where life bent you, low, unexpected challenges, losses, delays. Yet notice, friend, how you returned upright. Isn't patience hidden in that return? Zen masters sometimes challenge students with a curious question. If the bamboo bends, who is bowing? It is not only the stalk, but perhaps the ego itself learning to yield. To resist change is suffering. To bow is patience. Picture the grove now. Moonlight filters through thin leaves, painting shifting patterns on the earth. Each gust of wind creates a new canvas. As you watch, you realize that patience is not a still, unmoving thing. It is dynamic, alive, swaying with the moment. In daily life, patience often shows itself in small acts, listening without interruption, allowing silence in a conversation, or waiting for water to boil without irritation. The bamboo reminds us that these acts are not weakness, but resilience. What bends does not break. Friend, as you rest tonight, imagine yourself lying at the edge of the grove. Shadows ripple across your face, cool air brushes your skin, and the steady rhythm of swaying bamboo lulls you. Each creak, each whisper, is a reminder, patience is not about outlasting the storm, but about dancing with it until calm returns. The lanterns still glow nearby, the stone bridge waits, the river hums its eternal tune, and the bamboo, bending gracefully, offers one more lesson. Let yourself sway with life, and you will always find your way upright again. Beside the bamboo grove, where the river curved gently, a child once dropped a small pebble into the water. The pebble seemed so tiny, almost meaningless, and yet the ripples spread outward in widening circles, touching reeds, startling fish, and finally brushing the base of the stone bridge itself. The child laughed, unaware that such a small act had carried a lesson older than memory. Friend, can you picture it? That one small pebble sinking into the depths, leaving only soft rings on the surface. This is the way patience often works in our lives. We may think our small moments of waiting or kindness are insignificant, yet like ripples, they spread further than we know. In Buddhist thought, this connects to the teaching of cause and effect karma, not as punishment or reward, but as the natural ripple of our actions. A word spoken in patience instead of haste can echo in someone else's heart for years. A moment of waiting instead of forcing may change the course of a whole day. There is a lesser-known Zen tale of a student who asked his teacher why enlightenment took so long. The master handed him a bowl of water and told him to drop in a pebble. The student watched the ripples. Now, make them stop. The student tried smoothing the surface, splashing, but the ripples only grew. Finally, he gave up. The teacher said, "Do nothing, and they will settle." The lesson was clear. Patience is not in the forcing, but in allowing. Friend, do you recall times when you tried to hurry outcomes, only to stir more disturbance? Perhaps a conversation where words rushed out, or a decision pressed too soon. Yet, like the water, if left alone, the ripples would have calmed themselves. The pebble also shows us patience in scale. A small stone seems too small to matter, yet its impact is real. So too with our practice. A single evening of mindful breathing, a gentle act of kindness, a moment of resting instead of rushing, all are pebbles dropped into the vast river of life. They ripple further than we can see. Imagine yourself now by that river. You lean over the bridge and let a pebble slip from your hand. Hear the plink, see the rings spreading in the moonlight. It is a simple act, yet strangely soothing. Doesn't it feel like letting go of a small worry? Zen masters sometimes offer playful questions here. Does the ripple end when the eye no longer sees it? Perhaps it continues invisibly beneath the surface. Likewise, the patience you show may travel farther than you know. There is also patience in waiting for the ripple to fade. The child who threw the pebble wanted to throw another immediately, eager to see more circles. But an old monk nearby smiled and said, "Wait, watch." And so the child learned there is joy not only in action, but in waiting for the calm to return. Dear listener, as you rest tonight, consider your own pebbles. Which small acts have you dropped into your life today? A smile at a stranger, a deep breath before replying, a moment of rest in the middle of a busy day. Each one carries ripples. You may not see where they end, but they travel further than you think. The stone bridge arches above, the lanterns glow softly, bamboo sways in the night breeze, and the river, touched by countless pebbles through centuries, continues its lesson. Patience begins small, but its circles spread forever. On the far side of the bridge stood the old monastery, and within its walls the abbot was known for his slow tea. Each morning and evening he brewed it with a care that baffled the younger monks. They longed to gulp theirs quickly and move on to study or chores, but the abbot seemed content to let the kettle hum and the steam rise like incense into the air. Friend, picture this gentle scene. A small clay pot on the brazier, water bubbling softly, leaves unfurling slowly as if stretching after a long rest. The abbot would pour a stream of amber liquid into tiny cups, pausing between each pour as though savoring the silence itself. By the time the tea was ready, even the restless monks had stilled, lulled into the pace of their teacher. In Buddhist teaching, tea is not just a drink, but a practice, an embodiment of mindfulness and patience. Every movement becomes deliberate. Scooping leaves, boiling water, pouring slowly, sipping carefully. The abbot's tea was a lesson in itself. You cannot rush leaves to open, nor water to cool. There is a lesser-known Zen saying, "Tea reveals the measure of patience." A master once scolded a disciple for rushing his tea, saying, "You drink your restlessness, not the tea." The young monk did not understand at first, but later, when he slowed down, he found the tea tasted different, richer, calmer, as if the flavor had been waiting for him all along. Friend, is not it true in your own life that some things reveal themselves only when given time? A conversation deepens if you linger. A flower's fragrance comes only when you pause to notice. Even tonight, your body's rest cannot be forced. It arrives when gently invited, like tea steeping in still water. The abbot's patience was not only in brewing, but in sharing. He never rushed to hand a cup. Instead, he placed it before each monk, bowing slightly, letting them feel the weight and warmth. In that moment, the tea was not just liquid, but a gift of presence. Imagine sitting there, dear listener, with a small clay cup warming your palms. Steam curls upward, carrying the scent of earth and leaves. You lift it slowly, sip gently, and feel the warmth spread through you like calm, spreading across a restless mind. Doesn't it soothe you to think that even drinking tea can be a doorway into peace? Zen masters often play with paradox. One might ask, is the tea patient, or are you? The answer is less important than the pause it brings, the chance to realize that patience is not something you force, but something you share with what you meet. In daily life, tea is a reminder. The world often asks us to rush, but the kettle and the leaves ask us to wait. And waiting, we discover, is not emptiness, it is flavor. The river outside flows, the bamboo sways, lanterns glow softly, and the stone bridge holds steady. Inside the abbot's hall, the slow tea steeps. Each sip is patience turned liquid, a gentle lesson that carries us even now toward rest. The path leading away from the monastery wound up the mountain, narrow and uneven, yet well trodden by countless pilgrims. Stones jutted out, roots tangled across the way, and mist often veiled the higher steps. Many complained of its difficulty, but for those willing to walk it with patience, the path itself became the teacher. Friend, picture yourself there now, lantern light behind you fading as you step upward into twilight. Each footstep presses into soil that has carried generations. You cannot run here without stumbling. The mountain insists. Slow down, be steady, breathe with the climb. In this way, the path teaches patience without words. In Buddhism, the mountain path often symbolizes the spiritual journey. Enlightenment is not a single leap to the summit, but a patient step after step. The Buddha himself reminded followers that awakening is gradual, like the slow filling of a jar, drop by drop. The path's stones and turns embody that truth progress cannot be hurried, but each small effort adds up. There is a lesser-known Zen tale of a traveler who demanded to know how long it would take to reach the monastery. A monk answered, "If you walk fast, 3 days. If you walk slowly, 1 day." The traveler was puzzled, but later understood. Rushing leads to distraction, mistakes, and exhaustion. Walking slowly with patience brings you closer, sooner, with fewer stumbles. Friend, do you notice how this applies to your own life? Often we think we must rush toward peace, but in truth, hurrying only delays it. Rest, calm, and clarity arrive when we take the patient path, one breath at a time. As the pilgrim climbs, he begins to see that the path itself is enough. Each step offers a view: ferns, brushing ankles, bird calls, echoing through mist, the scent of pine sap in the air. Isn't it soothing to realize that the destination is not the only gift? Zen masters sometimes pose the question, is the summit found at the top, or in each step? The answer shifts, like the mist, reminding us that patience transforms the journey into arrival. Imagine now that you are resting halfway up, seated on a flat stone. Clouds drift below, and the river far beneath glimmers faintly. Your breath has slowed, your body steadied. You no longer measure how far remains. You simply walk when ready, sit when tired, breathe when still. This is patience as practice, not concept. The mountain path, with all its twists and stones, offers the same message as the bridge, the river, and the lanterns. Do not hurry. In stillness and steady movement alike, patience carries you. Tonight, let it carry you too, step by gentle step, into rest. At the foot of the mountain lived a humble farmer who often gazed upward at the drifting clouds. His fields were planted with rice and vegetables, and each day he waited for the sky to grant rain. Sometimes the clouds gathered thick and promising, yet passed without a drop. Other times the rain came heavy when he least expected it. The farmer sighed often, but over the years he learned that patience was his truest crop. Friend, imagine him kneeling in the soil, hands dark with earth, eyes fixed on the sky. He knew he could plow, plant, and tend, but he could not command the clouds. They came and went in their own rhythm, like breath in the great lungs of the world. Slowly he came to see that impatience with the clouds was like shouting at the wind. It changed nothing but his peace. In Buddhist teaching, Patience is closely tied to trust in causes and conditions. We do what we can, planting our effort like seeds, but we allow the timing of results to unfold naturally. Just as the farmer cannot pull at the stalks to make them grow faster, so we cannot force our lives to ripen before their season. There is a lesser-known Zen parable of a young monk who grew frustrated at meditation. "I sit for hours," he said, "but still no enlightenment." His master pointed to the clouds drifting by and asked, "Can you make them move faster?" The monk shook his head. The master replied, "Then why expect the mind to obey your impatience?" The lesson was clear. Like clouds, clarity arrives when the sky is ready. Friend, have you ever felt this same restlessness, wanting answers, change, or peace before its time? Perhaps you too have looked at your own fields and wished the harvest would come sooner. Yet the clouds remind us that life unfolds in its own rhythm. To accept this is to breathe more gently. The farmer came to see the clouds as companions, not adversaries. When they passed without rain, he bowed to their beauty. When they poured, he welcomed the gift. Over time, he no longer measured his happiness by their obedience, but by his willingness to receive whatever came. Picture yourself now, lying in his field at dusk, watching clouds drift across a violet sky. They form shapes, mountains, animals, fleeting faces, and dissolve again. Your chest rises and falls with the same rhythm, clouds outside, breath within. Doesn't it feel calming to realize that both move without your control, and both are beautiful as they are? Zen masters sometimes ask, is the sky patient, or is it simply vast? In that question lies another teaching. Patience is not always about waiting, but about spaciousness, giving time and events room to move naturally. The farmer still tilled his soil, still pulled weeds, still guarded his crops. Patience did not mean passivity. It meant effort without demand, action without clinging to the result. This balance, friend, is where peace grows. And so the drifting clouds join the bridge, the river, the lanterns, and the bamboo as teachers of patience. Each in their own way reminded those who watched, surrender, trust, and allow. Tonight, as you breathe beneath your own ceiling of clouds, you too may rest in that same quiet rhythm. Not far from the farmer's fields stood an ancient bell tower. The bell inside was heavy, cast in bronze centuries earlier, and each evening it was rung to mark the fading of daylight. Its sound was not hurried, not sharp, but deep and lingering, carrying across the valley like a slow wave. Villagers paused when they heard it, breathing with its fading echoes. The bell itself became a teacher of patience. Friend, imagine that sound rolling through the air. You hear the first strike rich, resonant, and then, most of all, you hear the silence that follows. The echo does not end suddenly, but dissolves gradually, giving space for the heart to settle. Isn't it calming to think that patience can be heard in the very way a sound fades? In Buddhism, bells are often used to remind practitioners to return to awareness. The sound is not a command, but an invitation. Each tone says, slow down, return, breathe. The bell embodies the practice of pausing, which is at the heart of patience. There is a lesser-known Zen custom where novices are told to listen to the temple bell until they can no longer hear it, and then continue listening even after silence has returned. In that attentive waiting, they learn patience not as waiting for something to happen, but as openness to what already is. A story tells of a monk who once grew irritated at being asked to ring the bell. He struck it too quickly, the sound harsh and short. The abbot gently corrected him. When you rush the bell, you rush the village. Strike it as though you had eternity. From then on, the monk learned to let the mallet rest on the bronze, allowing the sound to bloom on its own. Friend, how often in your own life do you cut things short, rushing through meals, conversations, even rest? The bell teaches that when we allow things to complete themselves, whether words, silences, or moments, they ring fuller and linger longer in the heart. Picture yourself now standing at the base of the tower. A monk raises the mallet and lets it fall with gentle strength. The sound vibrates in your chest, humming through your bones. You close your eyes, following the echo as it travels across the valley. Even when it fades, you feel its presence still inside you, like patience itself echoing within. Zen masters sometimes ask, does the sound end when the ear stops hearing? The question itself stretches time, teaching us that patience is found in how we attend, not only in what we hear. The old bell, weathered by centuries of rain and sun, continues its practice night after night. And each time it rings, the valley learns anew that patience is not about holding on. It is about letting go slowly, gently, until even silence becomes beautiful. The river flows nearby. The lanterns glow softly. Bamboo sways. Clouds drift. And now the bell joins them all. Together they weave a lesson that lingers in your heart. Life resounds most deeply when we allow it to echo in its own time. In the village lived an old potter whose workshop smelled of earth and smoke. Each day he sat at his wheel, pressing his foot gently to spin the clay. His hands moved slowly, shaping bowls and jars not through force but through patience. The wheel turned as steadily as the seasons, and the potter knew that rushing would only collapse the form. Friend, picture the soft rhythm of his wheel, hum, turn, press. Clay squishes beneath his fingers, cool and pliant. Each vessel begins as formless earth, and only by waiting does it take shape. Isn't it soothing to imagine patience turning mud into something beautiful? In Buddhist thought, this mirrors the shaping of our own lives. We are the clay and the potter both, slowly molded by experience, softened by time, shaped by patience. Just as the potter cannot yank the bowl into existence, we cannot force wisdom before its moment. There is a lesser-known Zen teaching about the pot that waits. A master once placed wet clay before a student and told him to leave it alone for a day. The next morning, the clay had firmed just enough to shape. The lesson: some things ripen only in their own season. Impatience ruins what patience perfects. The potter often told his apprentices, do not fight the wheel. Flow with it. And so they learned that patience was not passive, but a steady dance between hands and motion. Friend, how often do you find yourself fighting the wheel of your own life, pushing against time, against process? Perhaps the potter whispers to you tonight, steady your foot, soften your grip, let the wheel turn. Imagine now that you are seated in his workshop. The wheel spins slowly, the clay rises beneath gentle pressure, taking form. The fire crackles nearby, waiting to harden the vessel when the time is right. You realize that patience is in every stage, softening, shaping, firing, cooling. No step can be skipped, yet each step is beautiful in itself. Zen masters sometimes ask, is the bowl already complete in the clay? The question nudges us toward patience with what is unfinished. Perhaps, friend, your own life feels like wet clay tonight, messy, uncertain, unformed. Yet within it is already the shape of something whole. Patience is simply the wheel turning until it reveals itself. The potter's bowls eventually found their way into homes, holding rice, tea, flowers. None bore his name, yet each carried the fingerprint of his patience. In the same way, your quiet moments of waiting, your gentle acts of endurance, ripple into lives you may never see. The stone bridge stands steady, the river flows, the lanterns glow, bamboo bends, clouds drift, and the old bell echoes. Now the potter's wheel joins them, teaching that patience is not stillness alone. It is motion without haste, shaping without forcing, creating without clinging. At the edge of the valley, near a still pond, lived a solitary crane. Each morning before the sun broke the horizon, it stood silently in the shallow water, unmoving for long stretches of time. To the casual observer, it looked idle, perhaps even lifeless. Yet within that stillness was perfect patience. The crane waited for the right moment to move, never rushing, never grasping. Friend, imagine that quiet dawn scene. Mist clings to the water, the first hints of light turn the sky pale gold, and the crane stands poised, a living statue. Hours might pass, and then, with one graceful motion, it spreads its wings and lifts into the air. Doesn't it stir something in you, the beauty of waiting until the moment is ready? In Buddhism, patience is often compared to strength. In restraint, true discipline is not forcing action, but knowing when to hold back. The crane embodies this teaching. It does not flap nervously or dart without purpose. It waits, conserving energy, moving only when the conditions align. There is a lesser-known Zen saying, "The crane's flight begins in still water." The meaning is that clarity, patience, and right timing are born from stillness, not agitation. A restless mind cannot see clearly. A patient one knows when to take flight. A story is told of a young monk who was frustrated with meditation. "I sit, but nothing happens," he complained. His teacher pointed to the crane at the pond and said, "Do you call that nothing?" The monk watched for hours. Finally, when the crane lifted into the sky, the teacher whispered, "That is the fruit of stillness." Friend, in your own life, perhaps you have felt restless, wanting to leap before the moment was ripe. Can you see how patience, like the crane, asks you to stand in stillness until clarity comes? Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Imagine now that you are by the pond yourself. The air is cool, the surface of the water smooth as glass. You hear a faint rustle of reeds, but otherwise all is silence. The crane stands, a silhouette of grace. As you watch, you realize, patience does not mean inactivity. It means readiness without restlessness, alert without rushing. Zen masters sometimes pose this reflection. Is patience in the waiting or in the flight? The crane teaches that it is both. The stillness prepares the wings honor the stillness. When it finally takes off, the sound of its wings brushing air is softer than words, a reminder that patience leads to beauty, and beauty to freedom. The stone bridge endures, the river flows, the lanterns glow, bamboo sways, clouds drift, the bell resounds, and the potter shapes his clay. Now the crane joins this gathering of quiet teachers, showing us that patience is not empty waiting, but the poised stillness that makes true movement possible. Behind the monastery, where steam rose gently from cooking pots, the kitchen hummed with the rhythm of daily life. Monks moved about quietly, chopping vegetables, stirring broths, washing bowls. It was not grand work, yet the abbot often said the heart of the monastery beat in that kitchen. For here patience was not lofty philosophy, but simple practice repeated with every slice and stir. Friend, picture it now. The steady tap, tap, tap of a knife on a wooden board, the soft hiss of boiling rice, the fragrance of ginger and garlic drifting through the air. No one hurried, for haste would only bruise the vegetables or spill the broth. Instead, each action was done with care, as if the food itself carried the taste of patience. In Buddhism, ordinary tasks are often seen as paths to awakening. Cooking is no less sacred than chanting, to chop vegetables without rushing, to wash bowls without resentment, is to practice patience in the most tangible way. Zen reminds us, enlightenment is not separate from daily life. It lives in the kitchen as surely as in the meditation hall. A lesser-known Zen story tells of a cook who was scolded for chopping vegetables too quickly. "The blade is not to be raced," the head monk told him. "Cut with the rhythm of the breath." Over time, the cook discovered that his cutting became smoother, safer, even more beautiful. What began as drudgery became meditation. Friend, can you recall times in your life when daily tasks felt burdensome? Washing dishes, folding clothes, waiting in line. What if those moments could be like the monastery kitchen, opportunities to breathe, to soften, to move with patience instead of resistance? Imagine yourself standing there now, apron tied, steam warming your face. A basket of carrots rests on the counter. You lift the knife, place it gently against the orange root, and slice slowly, rhythm matching your breath. Each cut is clean, each moment steady. Doesn't it feel restful to imagine patience entering even into something so simple? Zen masters sometimes pose the reflection, is the soup nourished by the ingredients, or by the patience of its making? The monks knew the answer in their hearts. A meal cooked with patience warms more than the body. It calms the mind. The kitchen's steady work also carried lessons for community. Meals took hours to prepare, yet were eaten in silence in a matter of minutes. The monks never begrudged this. They understood patience was in the giving, not the receiving. The stone bridge waits outside, the river murmurs, lanterns glow, bamboo sways, clouds drift, the old bell hums, the potter turns his wheel, the crane stands at dawn. Now the kitchen joins this circle, showing us that patience is not hidden in temples alone. It is alive in the simple acts of daily life, each one a quiet step toward peace. In a small room of the monastery lived an aging calligrapher, known for his delicate brushwork. Sheets of rice paper hung on the walls, each stroke carrying both power and softness. Visitors often marveled at the words he painted, yet the calligrapher would smile and say, "The wisdom is not in the characters, but in the spaces between them." His art was less about ink and more about patience. Friend, imagine him seated at his low wooden desk. Before him lies a blank sheet, a brush resting in black ink. He waits. He does not rush the stroke, for he knows the hand must move in harmony with breath, and breath in harmony with mind. Only when all three align does the brush touch paper. Isn't it calming to think that even writing can be a meditation on patience? In Buddhism, the brush represents focused awareness, and the ink represents impermanence. Once the stroke is placed, it cannot be undone. This truth teaches patience in action. To move too quickly is to splatter, to hesitate is to falter, but to act with calm presence creates beauty. There is a lesser-known Zen practice where novices were told to draw circles, known as enso, again and again. Each circle revealed their state of mind. Some rushed, some broken, some steady. With patience, the circle became whole. A master once said, "You cannot hide your heart in ink." The practice taught not skill alone, but the patience of self-observation. The calligrapher himself told stories of his early years, when his eagerness ruined many sheets. Over time, he learned to pause, to breathe, to let silence guide the stroke. Ink dries quickly, he would say, but wisdom takes time. Friend, perhaps you have also known moments when haste left its mark, words spoken too soon, decisions made too quickly. The brush reminds us, patience gives weight to each stroke of life. Without it, we splatter. With it, we create meaning. Picture yourself now, sitting in his studio. The faint scent of ink fills the air. You lift the brush, feel its weight, dip it slowly, and wait. Your breath steadies. When the stroke comes, it flows smoothly, leaving behind a curve dark against white. You set the brush down, exhale, and smile. Doesn't it soothe you to imagine your own thoughts, painted with such care? Zen masters sometimes ask, is the beauty in the stroke or in the waiting before it? The calligrapher's life suggests it is both the patience of the pause and the grace of the motion. The stone bridge endures, the river flows, lanterns glow, bamboo bends, clouds drift, the bell echoes, the potter shapes clay, the crane waits at dawn, the kitchen hums. Now the brush joins them, teaching that patience is not only in silence, but also in the lines we choose to draw. Behind the calligrapher's studio lay a simple sand garden, raked each morning by novices with long wooden tools. The garden was nothing more than a patch of white gravel, a few stones, and perhaps a mossy lantern. Yet it held within it a universe of lessons, each line and swirl drawn with patience, only to be erased by wind, rain, or the next day's hand. Friend, imagine the garden under moonlight. The stones rise like islands, the sand ripples like waves, each pattern delicate and precise. A novice kneels, pulling the rake carefully through gravel, listening to the soft hiss of stone against stone. The work takes time, but no pattern lasts. Tomorrow, he will begin again. Doesn't it calm you to picture this cycle creation without clinging, patience without permanence? In Buddhism, impermanence is a central truth. Nothing endures unchanged clouds, seasons, lives, even the raked sand. To practice in the garden is to practice letting go, patience not with completion, but with repetition and renewal. There is a lesser-known Zen tale of a monk who grew weary of raking. "Why should I do this, when the wind will scatter it?" he asked. The abbot replied, "If permanence is your goal, you will never see the beauty of now." Slowly the monk came to realize that patience was not about preserving lines forever, but about loving them even as they faded. Friend, how often in your own life have you resisted impermanence, wishing to freeze a moment, hold on to a feeling, or keep something unchanged? The sand garden whispers gently, patterns are meant to dissolve, and in that dissolving, new space is born. Imagine yourself kneeling there, rake in hand. Each pull leaves a clean line, each swirl frames a stone. The rhythm steadies your breath. The world feels simple. Rake, step back, observe, rake again. No hurry, no permanence, just the patient beauty of this moment. Zen masters sometimes ask, is the garden in the lines or in the hands that erase them? The question stirs reflection. Perhaps patience is found not in holding on, but in the grace of release. When dawn comes, the novices bow before their work, knowing the wind will soon change it. Yet they do not grieve. They understand the lesson. Patience with impermanence is the only way to live fully. The stone bridge arches steady, the river flows, lanterns glow, bamboo sways, clouds drift, the bell hums, the potter shapes clay, the crane waits at dawn, the kitchen sings, the brush paints. Now the sand garden joins them, teaching that patience is not about permanence, but about tending beauty, even when it will soon be gone. High on the cliff overlooking the village grew a lone pine tree, its roots gripping stone where soil was scarce. Winds battered it, rains drenched it, snow clung to its branches each winter, and yet it stood. Bent but unbroken, the pine was a quiet companion to travelers who paused on the cliff path. Its very being was a living scripture of patience. Friend, imagine walking that path at dusk. The air cool, the sky painted in fading amber. You look up and see the pine silhouetted against the horizon. Though twisted by storms, it rises still, evergreen needles whispering in the wind. Isn't it calming to think that patience sometimes looks like enduring silently through seasons of hardship? In Buddhist teaching, patience is often paired with resilience. It is not resignation, but strength that yields without breaking. Like the pine, deeply rooted, one can face change and difficulty without losing the essence of life. A lesser-known Zen story tells of a novice who complained constantly about discomfort, heat in summer, cold in winter, sore legs in meditation. His master led him to the cliff and pointed to the pine. "Do you hear it complain?" he asked. The novice bowed, realizing the lesson. Patience is not about avoiding hardship, but about standing through it without bitterness. Friend, perhaps you too have faced storms in your own life, periods of waiting, loss, or difficulty. Like the pine, your roots held you, even if you felt bent by the winds. Can you see now that your patience was a kind of quiet strength? Picture yourself standing beneath that pine. Its bark is rough under your hand, its branches creak with age, yet its scent is sharp and alive. The wind rushes, but the tree sways gracefully, never uprooted. You breathe with it and feel steadier yourself. Zen masters sometimes ask, is patience the strength of the roots or the softness of the sway? The pine answers silently, it is both. To endure, we must hold firm to what grounds us, yet also yield enough to move with life's storms. Over time, the villagers came to honor the tree. They tied small ribbons of prayer to its branches, not to burden it, but to remember that patience is not passive. It is alive, breathing, bending, standing. The stone bridge endures, the river sings, lanterns glow, bamboo sways, clouds drift, the bell hums, the potter shapes clay, the crane waits, the kitchen steadies, the brush flows, the garden renews. Now the pine joins them, a teacher rooted in silence, whispering that patience is not only waiting, it is the quiet strength to endure and to grow. One autumn evening, a traveling merchant found himself delayed on his journey. His cartwheel had broken, and the road ahead was muddy from recent rains. He was anxious to reach the next town, where he hoped to sell his wares, but with his cart stranded, he could do nothing but wait. Frustration welled in him, but as the hours passed, he began to see patience in a new light. Friend, imagine the scene. The merchant sits beside his cart, the lantern dim, the forest around him alive with night sounds. At first, his mind races lost profits, wasted time, the customers waiting. But slowly the stillness seeps in. He notices the crickets, the wind brushing leaves, the cool scent of damp earth. The waiting that once felt like punishment begins to feel like permission to breathe. In Buddhist teaching, delays are often seen as hidden opportunities. The lesson of patience is not only to endure, but to notice what we would otherwise overlook. The merchant, by waiting, discovered peace he never found in the bustle of trade. A lesser-known Zen story tells of a traveler who asked a master how to hurry enlightenment. The master said, "Break your wheel." The traveler was confused, until one day his cart collapsed, and he was forced to walk slowly, seeing the world with new eyes. Only then did he understand the gift of delay. Friend, have you ever felt delayed in your own life? Plans stalled, goals postponed, doors not opening when you wanted them to. What if those delays were not obstacles, but pauses? Moments where patience could reveal something gentler, richer, quieter. Picture yourself now with the merchant, sitting by the road. The broken wheel rests in the mud, but above the stars shimmer, vast and endless. You realize that in your own waiting, you too can find a kind of freedom, not in arriving, but in resting where you are. Zen masters sometimes pose this reflection. Is delay an obstacle, or is it the path itself? The merchant's night by the roadside suggests it is both the path detours, but the detour itself is teaching. By morning, a farmer passed by and helped repair the cart. The merchant continued, lighter in spirit. He sold fewer wares that week, but carried home a greater treasure, the patience to see delays not as losses, but as moments of unexpected peace. The stone bridge stands steady, the river flows, lanterns glow, bamboo sways, clouds drift, the bell echoes, the potter shapes, the crane waits, the kitchen nourishes, the brush flows, the sand garden renews, the pine endures. Now the merchant's broken wheel joins this gathering, teaching that patience transforms even delay into discovery. In the monastery's great hall, monks gathered each evening to chant sutras. Their voices rose and fell in unison, not hurried, not sluggish, but steady like a tide. There was no rush to finish, for chanting was not about reaching the last line. It was about dwelling in each syllable. The sutra recitals, unchanging in their rhythm, became a school of patience for all who attended. Friend, imagine the sound now, a deep, resonant hum filling the hall, candles flickering against wooden beams, the air thick with incense. Each voice blends into the others, until no single singer stands apart. Doesn't it soothe you to think of patience as this gentle weaving of sound, holding everyone in its embrace? In Buddhism, chanting is not performance, but practice. Words are not rushed for clarity or speed. They are stretched out, repeated, allowed to settle, like stones dropped into a well. Patience lives in the drawn-out tones, reminding both chanter and listener that wisdom ripens slowly. There is a lesser-known Zen tale of a novice who grew restless during recitation. The words are always the same, he sighed. The master asked, "Are the sounds the same as yesterday's river?" The novice realized that though the syllables repeated, Each moment of chanting was unique, different voices, different breaths, different hearts. The practice was not about variety, but about patient presence. Friend, perhaps you too have felt weary of repetition in your life. Daily routines, familiar words, the same paths walked again and again. Yet the chanting whispers, patience is not about novelty, but about entering fully into the rhythm of what is. Each moment, though similar, is unrepeatable. Imagine yourself sitting in that hall, cross-legged, on a cushion. The voices surround you, a soft ocean of sound. You let the tones carry you, not struggling to follow, not forcing meaning, but resting in the cadence. Your breath joins theirs, and together you form one patient river of sound. Zen masters sometimes pose the question, do we chant the sutra, or does the sutra chant us? The reflection turns our minds gently. Perhaps patience is not something we perform, but something that carries us when we yield to the rhythm of life. As the chanting continues into the night, the hall itself seems to breathe, steady and calm. Outside, the stone bridge endures. The river flows, lanterns glow, bamboo sways, clouds drift, the bell hums, the potter shapes, the crane waits, the kitchen nourishes, the brush paints, the sand garden renews, the pine endures, the merchant rests. Now the sutra's slow cadence joins them all, teaching that patience is not waiting for silence, but dwelling fully in each note of sound. One evening, as candles flickered low in the hall, a moth drifted toward the flame. Its wings quivered in the heat, yet it lingered, drawn irresistibly closer. The monks watching it whispered quietly of desire, of longing that does not know patience. The candle and the moth became a living parable for the dangers of rushing toward what burns, and the wisdom of waiting in stillness. Friend, picture the scene. The moth circles the candle in widening arcs, then tightens its spiral, as if enchanted by the light. The flame flickers, steady but unyielding. The moth, unable to restrain itself, touches too close and recoils. Doesn't this remind you how impatience with our desires often singes us, while patience allows us to observe without harm? In Buddhist thought, desire is not evil, it is natural. But when coupled with impatience, it consumes us. Patience gives us space to pause, to breathe, to see clearly whether the flame we are drawn toward will warm us or burn us. A lesser-known Zen story tells of a monk who meditated before a candle each night. One evening, moths fluttered into the flame again and again. The monk turned to his students and said, "Watch carefully. This is the way of those who chase desire without patience." Then he covered the candle with his hand, and the room grew dark. Only in the dark can you see the stars. The teaching was subtle. Patience sometimes means stepping back from the flame to discover a greater light. Friend, perhaps you have known moments like this in your life, drawn quickly towards something that promised joy, only to feel disappointment or hurt. Can you see how patience, like the space between the moth and the candle, can protect you, giving time for true wisdom to arise? Imagine yourself now holding the candle gently, watching its flame dance. The moth circles, but you do not swat it away, you simply observe. In this patient waiting, you learn not to fear desire, but to give it room, to let it settle on its own. Doesn't it feel restful to let life's impulses drift by like this, without rushing to act? Zen masters sometimes ask, is it the candle's fault that the moth burns, or the moth's impatience? The riddle turns the lesson inward. Patience is not about extinguishing the flame, but about choosing how we meet it. Outside the bridge stands, the river flows, lanterns glow, bamboo sways, clouds drift, the bell hums, the potter shapes, the crane waits, the kitchen nourishes, the brush flows, the sand garden renews, the pine endures, the merchant rests, the sutra chants. Now the candle joins them, teaching that patience is the cool distance between impulse and action, where freedom is found. Above the monastery rooftops, clouds drifted slowly, painted gold by the setting sun. Some sped across the sky, pushed by unseen winds, while others floated lazily, unhurried, changing shape as they went. The monks often paused their chores to look upward, for the wandering clouds carried a teaching deeper than the eye could see, patience in drifting without control. Friend, imagine lying on your back in the monastery courtyard, the stone beneath you still warm from the day. The sky stretches vast and endless, clouds sliding like boats on an invisible ocean. One moment you see a mountain in their shapes, the next a dragon, the next nothing but formless mist. Doesn't it soothe you to realize how effortlessly they move? No plan, no destination, no rush. In Buddhist practice, clouds are often likened to thoughts. They appear, shift, dissolve, return. We cannot control them fully, but we can choose how to relate to them. Impatience tries to hold them still or chase them away. Patience allows them to drift as they will, trusting that clarity always returns. A lesser-known Zen teaching tells of a master who instructed a student to meditate by watching clouds for 30 days. The student grew restless. They are always changing. The master smiled. So is your mind. Sit until you see that both are the same. In time, the student realized that patience was not in stilling the clouds, but in watching, without clinging. Friend, perhaps you too have wrestled with restless thoughts, circling over and over. What if, instead of battling them, you let them drift like clouds? No need to fix or chase, just watch them change and pass. Imagine now the evening sky above you. The lanterns glow at the monastery steps, but your gaze rests upward, where the first stars emerge between drifting shapes. A cool breeze brushes your skin, carrying the scent of pine and incense. You feel small beneath the vastness, yet comforted, as if the sky itself whispers, "Be patient, dear one." All things move on. Zen masters sometimes ask, do the clouds move across the sky, or does the sky move across the clouds? The riddle points us back to perspective. Patience is not only about waiting for change, but about resting in the vastness that holds all change. And so the wandering clouds join the stone bridge, the flowing river, the glowing lanterns, the bending bamboo, the echoing bell, the potter's wheel, the crane at dawn, the monastery kitchen, the calligrapher's brush, the sand garden, the enduring pine, the weary merchant, the chanting sutra, the candle flame. Together they whisper, patience is vast, wide enough to hold even the restless drift of the mind. In a small workshop on the edge of the village, a carpenter bent over his bench. His tools were simple, plain, saw, chisel, yet in his hands, even rough wood became smooth and graceful. Each cut took time. Each curve required attention, for he knew that to rush was to splinter. His patience was measured not in hours, but in the beauty of what emerged from his work. Friend, picture him now, shavings curling onto the floor like ribbons, the scent of cedar rich in the air, his hands moving slowly but surely. He pauses often, not from weariness, but from care, measuring twice, sanding gently, waiting for the wood to reveal its grain. Isn't it calming to imagine patience flowing through each gesture, shaping not only the wood, but the craftsman himself? In Buddhism, effort is often described as balanced, not too tight, not too loose. The carpenter embodied this. If he pressed too hard, the wood cracked. If he worked carelessly, the piece failed. Only patient attention created harmony. A lesser-known Zen story tells of a carpenter who was asked how he carved such perfect doors for the monastery. He said, "I do not carve the wood. I wait until the door appears, then remove what is not needed." His answer baffled many, but his students came to understand patience allows hidden forms to emerge without forcing. Friend, perhaps in your own life, you have felt the urge to rush projects, to push outcomes, to hurry results. What if patience, like the carpenter's touch, could reveal what is already waiting within? You do not have to force the shape, you only need to wait, gently removing what is unnecessary. Imagine yourself in his shop, lantern light pooling on the wooden bench. You run your hand across a plank, feeling the smoothness where the plane has passed. The carpenter smiles, offering you a chisel. Slowly, you shave away a thin layer, watching the wood gleam beneath. Your breath steadies, your movements slow, and with each stroke, you feel not hurried, but grounded. Zen masters sometimes ask, is the patience in the wood or in the hands that shape it? The reflection reminds us, patience is both the willingness to wait and the care in each action. The carpenter's work became part of the village tables where families ate, doors that welcomed guests, beams that held roofs steady. Few remembered his name, but all lived with the patience he had carved into their homes. The stone bridge endures, the river flows, lanterns glow, bamboo sways, clouds drift, the bell echoes, the potter shapes, the crane waits, the kitchen nourishes, the brush paints, the sand garden renews, the pine stands, the merchant pauses, the sutra chants, the candle glows. Now the carpenter's bench joins them, teaching that patience shapes both wood and life, smoothing roughness into harmony with gentle hands. At the edge of the monastery pond, lotus flowers slowly lifted their buds toward the morning light. Each dawn the monks watched them open, not with haste, but with a quiet unfolding. No matter how much one longed to see the full bloom, the petals refused to rush. They taught patience through their very rhythm, reminding all who looked that beauty arrives only in its own time. Friend, picture that pond, water still as glass, dragonflies hovering, the first sun rays shimmering across the surface. A lotus bud trembles slightly, then, almost imperceptibly, the petals loosen, revealing color within. You lean closer, and though you wish to see it fully bloom, the flower insists, "Wait." Isn't it soothing to imagine patience blossoming in silence, petal by petal? In Buddhism, the lotus is a profound symbol, rooted in mud, rising through water, blooming untouched in the air above. It shows us that patience is not just about enduring time, but about trusting the slow transformation from murky beginnings into radiant awakening. A lesser-known Zen saying reminds students, you cannot peel open the lotus without destroying it. This points to the futility of forcing growth. If we tug at life, at ourselves, at others, before their time, we cause harm. Patience means allowing things to unfold naturally. A story tells of a monk who grew anxious in meditation He begged his teacher, "When will I awaken?" The teacher led him to the lotus pond and said, "Open that flower." The monk tried, pulling at the petals, but only tore them. The teacher smiled gently. "Awakening is like this bloom. It opens when ready, not when pulled." Friend, perhaps you too have moments of wanting change too quickly, wanting peace now, clarity now, joy now. The lotus whispers, "It will come, but not by force." Can you rest as it rests, trusting that your own unfolding cannot be hurried? Imagine kneeling by the pond, watching a flower open in its own rhythm. Birds sing, the water laps softly at the edge, your breath slows to match the gentle unfurling. You realize that your own growth, your own healing, is also a lotus, silent, gradual, beautiful in its patience. Zen masters sometimes ask, does the lotus bloom at dawn, or does dawn bloom with the lotus? The question dissolves into the same teaching. Patience is not waiting for something separate, but dwelling in the rhythm where all things bloom together. And so the lotus joins the stone bridge, the flowing river, the glowing lanterns, the bending bamboo, the drifting clouds, the echoing bell, the potter's wheel, the crane at dawn, the monastery kitchen, the calligrapher's brush, the sand garden, the enduring pine, the delayed merchant, the chanting sutra, the glowing candle, and the carpenter's bench. Together they weave one message. Patience is the quiet flowering of life, perfect in its own time. Far into the mountains, beyond where the village paths ended, lived an old hermit in a small stone hut. His days were marked by silence, his nights by starlight. He grew no crops, tended no animals, and sought no company. His only practice was to sit, to breathe, and to wait. For those who visited him, the hermit embodied patience. In its purest form, patience was solitude itself. Friend, imagine stepping into his dwelling. The hut is simple: a mat, a clay cup, a single candle. Outside, wind sighs through the pines. Inside, the hermit sits cross-legged, eyes half closed, listening to silence as if it were music. Isn't it calming to think of someone so content with nothing but stillness? In Buddhist teaching, solitude is not loneliness, but spaciousness. It is an opportunity to see oneself clearly, without distraction. Yet solitude can feel heavy without patience, for the mind often resists quiet, filling the space with restlessness. The hermit's life was a practice of enduring that restlessness until it softened into peace. There is a lesser-known Zen story of a monk who asked his master for a teaching he could practice alone in the mountains. The master gave him a single phrase, "Wait." The monk sat for years with nothing else. At first, impatience tormented him. But slowly he learned that waiting without demand is itself enlightenment. Friend, have you known moments of solitude where you longed for company, for distraction, for noise? The hermit's life whispers that patience with silence is also a kind of strength. Can you rest, even briefly, in your own company without trying to fill the space? Picture yourself now seated beside him, a candle flickering between you. The silence is not empty. It is full of night sounds, the crackle of the fire, the distant call of an owl, the whisper of wind. Your breath slows, matching the hermit's. You realize that patience here is not about time passing, but about embracing the vastness of stillness. Zen masters sometimes ask, is solitude the absence of others or the presence of yourself? The hermit's life suggests it is both, and in that paradox lies the deepest patience. When villagers visited, seeking advice, the hermit rarely spoke. Sometimes he offered tea, sometimes only silence. Yet many left with calmer hearts, as though his patience had seeped into them. His solitude became not withdrawal, but a gift, reminding all who met him that peace does not require noise, nor even words. The stone bridge endures, the river flows, lanterns glow, bamboo sways, clouds drift, the bell echoes, the potter shapes, the crane waits, the kitchen nourishes, the brush paints, the garden renews, the pine endures, the merchant rests, the sutra chants, the candle glows, the carpenter carves, the lotus blooms. Now the hermit joins them, teaching that patience with solitude is the doorway to the richest company of all, the quiet presence within. One spring, heavy rains cracked the stones of the old bridge. Moss loosened, mortar crumbled, and small gaps appeared between the slabs. The villagers, who had crossed it daily for generations, worried the bridge might fall. So they gathered farmers, monks, children, and elders to repair it together. The work was slow, stone by stone, yet it became a lesson in communal patience. Friend, picture the scene. Lanterns hung from poles, casting warm light on the riverbank, buckets of mortar, baskets of rock, hands passing tools from one to another. No one hurried, for haste would only weaken the repairs. Instead, they worked steadily, voices low, laughter mingling with the sound of chisels. Doesn't it soothe you to imagine patience shared by many hearts, building something lasting together? In Buddhism, patience is often spoken of as an individual virtue, but it also blossoms in community. To work with others means waiting for different rhythms, different strengths, different opinions. True harmony is built not by rushing, but by allowing space for all to contribute. A lesser-known Zen story tells of a monastery that took 10 years to build its hall, because the monks worked only when they could do so mindfully. Outsiders mocked them for their slowness, but when the hall was finally finished, its beauty carried a calm that outlasted centuries. The builders had carved patience into its beams. Friend, perhaps you know how hard it can be to wait when others move at a different pace. Yet the bridge reminds us, patience shared is stronger than patience alone. Can you recall moments where slowing to another's rhythm created connection instead of frustration? Imagine yourself there, with the villagers. You carry a stone, place it carefully, and step back to see the bridge steady again. A child hands you water, an elder pats your shoulder. The night is cool, the air rich with the scent of wet earth. Together you feel that time itself has slowed, as if the bridge is teaching everyone to endure as it does. Zen masters sometimes ask, does the bridge endure because of stone or because of the patience of those who tend it? The answer may be both, reminding us that patience is not only in waiting but in caring. By dawn, the repairs are done. The bridge stands whole once more, carrying the imprint of many patient hands. The villagers bow to it before crossing, grateful not only for its strength, but for the lesson it offered. Endurance is not built alone, but together. The stone bridge itself has become more than stone. It is now memory, river, lantern, bamboo, cloud, bell, clay, crane, kitchen, brush, sand, pine, merchant, chant, candle, wood, lotus, and hermit. And now, with the villagers, repairs, it whispers anew, patience not only endures but also rebuilds, stronger with every act of care. When the bridge was strong again, villagers began to cross it with fresh reverence. Among them was a pilgrim, weary from many miles of travel. As he stepped onto the stones, he paused, feeling the cool surface beneath his feet. With each step, he realized the bridge was not merely carrying him across the river. It was carrying him through his own journey of patience. Friend, imagine yourself walking with him. The lanterns flicker in the night breeze, the river glimmers below, and the repaired stones feel steady underfoot. Each step echoes softly, and with every sound you sense something more than movement. It is a crossing, both outer and inner. Isn't it calming to imagine patience as this gentle span, guiding you safely forward? In Buddhism, life itself is sometimes compared to a crossing, from ignorance to wisdom, from grasping to letting go, from restlessness to peace. The bridge becomes a living metaphor, reminding us that patience is the span between effort and arrival. A lesser-known Zen parable tells of a monk who asked his teacher how to cross the river of suffering. The teacher pointed to a bridge and said, "Step by step." The monk frowned, expecting something profound. Yet years later, as he walked across an actual bridge, he understood the teaching was in the simplicity of patient movement, one foot after another. Friend, how often have you longed to leap to the other side of a difficulty, to be past it, done with it, relieved of it? But the bridge whispers, it is not in leaping, but in walking steadily that you arrive. Can you allow yourself the patience of each step, rather than rushing to the end? Picture yourself now pausing midway across the bridge. The river flows beneath, carrying moonlight. You rest your hand on the railing, cool and worn smooth by generations. In that pause, you realize you are already where you need to be, not because you have finished the crossing, but because you are present upon it. Zen masters sometimes ask, is the journey in the crossing or in the arrival? The bridge teaches that it is both, and patience is what allows the crossing to become meaningful. The pilgrim reached the far bank at dawn, his weariness eased, not by the distance traveled, but by the patience the bridge had offered. He bowed to the stones before continuing, carrying their lesson in his heart. Patience is the bridge we walk each day, linking us gently to peace. The river still flows, the lanterns glow, the bamboo sways, the bell hums, the potter shapes, the crane waits, the kitchen nourishes, the brush paints, the sand garden renews, the pine endures, the merchant rests, the sutra chants, the candle glows, the carpenter shapes, the lotus blooms, the hermit waits, the villagers build. And now the pilgrim's quiet crossing joins them, teaching that patience is not the absence of movement, but the presence of steady trust. At last night deepened, and the bridge stood quiet again, its stones damp with dew. No villagers crossed, no pilgrims approached, only the river's endless murmur below. In that stillness, the bridge itself seemed to breathe, as if whispering the final teaching. Patience is not only in movement or endurance, it is in the deep rest beyond striving. Friend, imagine yourself lying upon the bridge beneath a canopy of stars. The lanterns have all been extinguished, the air is cool, and the only sound is the river's hush. You feel the solid stone beneath your body, steady and timeless. Doesn't it soothe you to know that patience means you do not always need to act, that you can simply rest, as the bridge rests, spanning the night? In Buddhism, patience is often called a perfection, because it carries us across difficulties into peace. Yet the highest patience is not about waiting for something to arrive. It is about resting in what already is. The bridge embodies this. It does not yearn for tomorrow, nor regret yesterday. It simply holds the present moment. There is a lesser-known Zen tale of a master who once lay upon a bridge all night. When asked why, he replied, "Because tonight I wished to be carried by patience." His students puzzled over this, but later understood to stop striving, to let the world move without chasing it, is itself a practice of deep patience. Friend, perhaps you too have spent days striving, nights restless, thoughts racing ahead. Tonight, let this bridge carry you. Feel its strength beneath you, its centuries of endurance, its quiet acceptance of every footstep, every raindrop, every silence. You need not hold yourself up. Patience, like the bridge, holds you. Zen masters sometimes ask, is the bridge stronger because it endures or because it rests? The question opens like the night sky, showing us that true patience is both the strength to endure and the softness to surrender. And so the journey of the stone bridge closes. The river flows, lanterns glow, bamboo sways, clouds drift, the bell echoes, the potter shapes, the crane waits, the kitchen nourishes, the brush paints, the sand garden renews, the pine endures, the merchant rests, the sutra chants, the candle glows, the carpenter shapes, the lotus blooms, the hermit waits, the villagers build, and the pilgrim crosses. Together they have woven one long teaching that patience is not delay, but peace itself. Now, dear listener, allow these lessons to soften into your breath, carrying you gently toward rest. And now, friend, as the night stretches deep and calm around you, let the story fade into silence. You are safe here. There is nothing more to chase, nothing to finish, nothing to prove. Each sound, each thought, each breath has become like the river under the bridge, moving gently, naturally, without need of control. Notice how your body has grown heavier, sinking into the comfort of where you rest. Notice how your breath, once busy, has slowed into a quiet rhythm. This, too, is patience, allowing your body and mind to arrive at their own stillness. Imagine again the stone bridge beneath the stars. The lanterns have gone dark. The villagers sleep. The monks rest in their cells. Only you remain, stretched across the stones, held by centuries of calm endurance. The river hums beneath you, clouds drift silently above, and the bridge whispers, "Stay, rest, there is no hurry." Let your thoughts be like those clouds appearing, changing, dissolving, without your effort. Let your breath be like the river, steady, soothing, endless. Let your heart be like the bridge, strong, patient, at peace. Friend, you are whole as you are. You are enough as you are. You are carried by the same patience that held the monks, the villagers, the pine tree, the lotus bloom. Nothing more is required of you tonight. Close your eyes fully now and allow sleep to come like dawn, slow, soft, inevitable. Each breath carries you closer. Each moment sinks you deeper. You are safe, you are loved, you are already home. Sleep peacefully, dear listener, for wisdom walks with you, even in dreams,